Welcome, Taurus, to your in-depth monthly horoscope for December 2023 for the Sun or the Ascendant. I'm going to give you an overview of what you can expect, but please stay with me. I will explore in much greater detail all the ins and outs particularly relevant to your sign, including a look at the moon phases, but also Christmas Day and New Year's Eve. Now, your ruler is in a very practical location as this month begins, Taurus, but moves on the 4th into a truly blessed area, the 7th house, which Venus has a real appreciation for. The host, of course, is Scorpio, which is deep and intense. That's going to be fascinating as far as your relationships. But the Sun, Mercury initially, and Mars are all in your 8th house, which is quite intense, and maybe there's going to be some big shifts and changes going on even as late as this in this year. You do have the winter solstice on the 22nd. Your Sun returns to your sister Earth sign of Capricorn, which is a really great news story. And also, as the year closes, the Sun is angling quite beautifully to Jupiter, which has big implications to enjoy the festivities for the max, but also for your prospects next year. Now, if you've yet to order your personal horoscope for year 2024, if you do so now, you can still get the rest of this year free. But also my special package, you'll get your character analysis report, your life roadmap, and 30% off, but also your year 2024 zodiac forecast for each of the 12 signs, but also Indian forecast for each of the 12 signs, and Chinese forecast for each of the 12 animal signs. Totally free of charge, those booklets. Please see the link below for more. So, Taurus, as you make your way into December, the Sun, initially on the first day, Mercury and Mars are all in the 8th house. The 8th house is very much about desire, but it can also be about transformation, can be also about change. Now, in a practical sense, could see you thinking carefully about your resources, particularly because Mercury moves later on the 1st into your sister Earth sign of Capricorn. Capricorn very much about the worldly dimension and how we connect to that world. And the 9th house suggests there could be some information that you'll gain in, particularly over the first 3 weeks of December, which could prove to be very illuminating. But having the Sun and Mars so closely together in the 8th house really does suggest, particularly if you are someone who would like to meet somebody, that the yearning for that connection can be very, very strong indeed. But the 6th sees Neptune end its retrograde. Now that's gone on for 22 and a half weeks since the end of June. That's a long old time. And if there has been confusion around your friendships or longer term hopes, or conversely, you've managed to access a part of yourself which elevates your thinking into the arena of where you get a real spiritual fulfillment, it may have worked to your advantage. It just depends on your situation. But on the 12th, we have a new moon in Sagittarius, the 8th house, but it angles to the North Node, but in the 12th house for you. I think there can be some revelations that follow in the latter part of this month. And also because Neptune is feeding into this event, maybe is where you're not getting a sense of clarity about that future direction, or you feel conflicted. So, for example, if there's some possessiveness or jealousy or control or power games going on in any kind of relationship, whether it's a professional one or perhaps a friendship, that could be something that's very subtle, but you can start to see it more clearly over the following 2 weeks. Things get potentially cloudier because Mercury goes retrograde on the 13th. If you are planning to travel anywhere, Mercury being retrograde in the 9th house is an obvious red flag. Of course, it depends on your approach to Mercury retrograde. Some people will not sign any agreement, buy anything through a Mercury retrograde. But you know, the whole Mercury retrograde period, including the shadows, lasts 10 weeks. And so if we don't do anything for around about 30 and a half weeks, 35 weeks of the year, that's a long time to be impotent. So it depends on your relationship to Mercury retrogrades, but if you are wanting to travel anywhere, it is possible that there will be a snag, but it's also possible that you can take create as many contingencies as possible to try to deal with any issues that may come up. But the 18th to the 23rd is actually really exciting for you. A completely unplanned and unscheduled meeting or connection with someone can be absolutely electrifying. And the person that you encounter may be someone who challenges you in some ways. It could be someone who has a degree of charm and diplomacy about them. Now that obviously is aided with Venus moving into your 7th house on the 4th for yourself, but there may be another part of them or you that comes out in this mutual connection that in some way cuts through to what's really meaningful, and that actually can be very exciting, can be very raw, but it also can make us feel alive. Now, the other thing that can happen with Venus opposite Uranus is that if you feel in a relationship that you're giving too much of your power away, you may actually want to separate yourself in some way. Perhaps it could be a minor rebellion, like saying, I'm going out with my friends for a Christmas party or some drinks, and if you don't like it, it's tough, because that's what I need to do, which could be challenging to the other person, but actually might do them a load of good, particularly if you have been living in one of others' pockets a little bit too much. But of course, Venus can also be about money for its rulership of your sign. So maybe there's going to be a sudden desire to splash out on a Christmas gift for someone that you feel will really excite them, or perhaps there's going to be a sudden expense that you could do without. Now, the 22nd sees the winter solstice. The sun returns to Capricorn after an 11-month vacation. And for you, this ramps up this desire to be more enterprising and more experimental, the 9th house. But of course, Pluto has been pushing you around that since 2008. Uranus for the last 4.5 years. If you think back to before 2008 and before 4.5 years ago, you probably live in your life much more in the archetypal way that Taurans are said to be, which is an appreciation of routine, of a certain amount of predictable but comforting structures and foundations. But you really have been taking yourself on, I feel, in recent years. And I think this winter solstice can add to that. But on the 23rd, ironically, Mercury inverts back into your 8th house. So the 9th and 8th houses together are strongly emphasised this month. And with Mercury retrograde across both, if you are discussing a contractual matter, maybe on a property, maybe on a business situation, it is going to be really important to minutely analyse the small print. And one of the reasons for this is that although the last 2 weeks of this month and the first 3 months of 24 see a very balanced link between the planet of risk, Jupiter, and the planet of restriction, Saturn, and they're actually feeding into the full moon, which occurs in the sign of Cancer on the 27th in a positive way. There is a really trying link between the moon in Gemini and Neptune actually on Christmas Day itself. So if you were discussing something, it would be easy for people to get the wrong end of your stick. And again, it could be around someone just seeing things differently, having a different reality to you, and feeling that it's a bit frustrating to have to keep revisiting it and re-explaining it. So there could be a little bit of that Christmas Day. But if you can enjoy all the traditional fare, you're definitely going to enjoy it to the max. But that full moon, which occurs on the 27th, is very good for getting you in touch, not just with expressing yourself, but expressing how you feel. Certainly in Britain, we're not very good at expressing how we feel. We're very caught up in certain gentrification of language, like, oh, I'm absolutely fine. So we don't necessarily say how we feel. But you could find yourself having a bit of a debate towards the end of this year, not necessarily in a bad way. Maybe it's going to be one of those parties where you sat on the stairs and get talking to someone about something really random. That actually could turn out to be good fun. Now, Venus moves on the 29th into the sign of Sagittarius, where she's probably at her least faithful. But for you, the 8th house can be very much about where we're most invested. So what you'd be looking for here is, if you did connect with someone, that their love language or their wider values correspond with yours. But the standout thing to tell you, to be honest, Taurus, is that from the 25th to the 28th, the Sun is forging a gorgeous trine with Jupiter, one of the luckiest aspects in astrology. But Jupiter really comes into force in a much more helpful way on the last day of the year by coming out of its retrograde, which has lasted 4 months. So what we get as the end of the year comes to pass, and we have the start of 2024, is Jupiter is direct in a trine with the Sun, but Jupiter's in your sign, where it is for first time in 12 years. It's going to be with you through to the 23rd of May. And you're going to have a backdrop on the solar return with the Sun, which is really pushing you to go for it when it comes to higher education, travel, new knowledge. But because of the Earth, that can be about using that extra dash to convert that into a better situation for you financially. Really, really exciting to have. But has to be said, Mercury's still retrograde. And indeed, on the 23rd, it inverts back into Sagittarius. So that's the one I'm saying about contracts. Be cautious about contracts because of Mercury going across the 9th and 8th houses. But Jupiter, of course, is the ruler of the 9th house, and it really is giving you a lot of extra confidence as this year comes to a close. I suppose the thing with life is it's never a straight line, is it? Even if quite a few things are going well for us, our personal reality can be swamped by immediate concerns about people's welfare that we're close to and so forth and so on. But what I feel is going on with this chart is there is the potential for some transformation early in the month. Later in the month, you're going to find there's a chance for you to be much more daring. The only fly in the ointment, celestial really, is the role of Neptune, because I feel that what Neptune is doing is saying to you, make sure that whatever principles or hopes that you're pinning your future direction to, they are deliverable, that they are workable. Now, because you're on Earth sign, you have a real appreciation of being earthy, and so don't get too swept away by the influence of someone around you, maybe a friend, maybe someone that you're into, you follow, some kind of public figure. It's important to retain your own centrifugal force, and there's a lot for you to go for this month, which is really exciting. I'd like to wish you a very happy Christmas and New Year. If you are on your own on Christmas Day, as ever, you will be very much in my thoughts.